Hey guys, first Regardsman here, and today I want to talk about patch 13, the upcoming Warhammer Skulls event, and some hints towards unique cosmetics coming to things like cape selection, and some leaks for a future chapter head cosmetic and voice pack DLC, on top of information about the upcoming Wargear customization for capes and iron halos. Space Marine 2 patch 13 is set to have a Q2 release window. This will put the latest possible release all the way to the end of June, though we could get an earlier one. Saber has been intentionally keeping the date a secret, presumably for Warhammer Skulls, but the focus community manager did recently come out and say that you could probably make an estimation on the release date based on prior ones, which would put this one around the 25th to 26th of May, just like we have the Tech Marine on the 26th of February and patch 11 on November 25th last year. Focus has said that all patches usually have a 2 to 3 month gap, and an actual June release date would push the patch to a 4-month gap, which has pretty much never happened in Space Marine 2 since launch. And we also just got confirmation that the Warhammer Skulls gaming event will be starting on the 21st of May, and Space Marine 2 is front-running the lineup of games that will also include things like Darktide and the upcoming Dawn of War 4. So a huge rumor going around is that they might drop the Space Marine 2 patch 13 in the middle of the event, and Space Marine 2 is at the forefront for the showcase, and this is something studios like Arrowhead have done previously at the Game Awards for things like Helldivers 2. And I will be streaming this event both here on my YouTube and on my Twitch, which there is a link to in the video description. If you want to join my community Discord, you can find that down there as well. Now, patch 13 is going to be bringing us a brand new cosmetic overhaul system with the Wargear update. This is set to be a 2-part update that will initially be bringing us iron halos and capes to classes beyond the sniper and heavy, like the tactical and presumably the bulwark. And the second part of the update will be bringing in things like cloaks from the Dark Angels champion set and tabards to other classes in patch 14. There have been a ton of questions regarding this new Wargear customization from the Space Marine 2 community, such as how the capes will work, if we can recolor them, and if there will be additional cosmetics beyond the base game Wargear selection. The Wargear update is intended to not only be an expansion to your cosmetic selection, but also the challenges in the game already for the ordeals, because as it currently stands, the ordeal system in Space Marine 2 is severely undercooked. We only have 4 cosmetic unlocks, and one of them is for the auto bolt rifle, which is the worst gun in the entire game. I don't know exactly call this optimal at the moment, and the Wargear customization update is supposed to add in a new section of ultra grind ordeal challenges that will have 3 ranks of increasing difficulty, with the only hint we have as to what they'll actually be like is an ordeal that will require you to headshot 3 Majoras with 1 shot on absolute difficulty. And guys, I'll be real, I think this will probably be a significant grind in the game to unlock everything. The ordeals we have already take a long ass time to unlock compared to most things in Space Marine 2, and I think this is a good thing for the game since we've really been missing a meaningful grind in Space Marine 2 for a while now. The grind we have right now primarily revolves around the leveling experience for weapons and classes, which is not exactly meaningful content in my opinion. Some people think that leveling is part of the experience and content in the game, which while technically true, I usually just find systems like this to be a slog. And a proper ordeal system or penance system like Darktide has that gives us substantial cosmetic unlocks would be incredible for the game. So we know for a fact that this will give you access to capes and iron halos from existing classes, but there are also likely brand new capes and even iron halos too, and potentially even armor pieces tied to this, because the March community update gave us a look at a Tyrannic veteran arm and shoulder that currently does not exist in the game as a tease for a future update, and all the other Tyrannic War veteran armor pieces are part of the ordeal system we have in game already, so I expect this will be part of this expansion as a lower rank challenge unlock, potentially alongside the capes and iron halos. Now, this would make the customization challenges significantly bigger than we even thought initially, because most players expected this to just be for equipment we have in the game already, and we just be swapping armor pieces around, but that really does not make that much sense as the only reward for ultra grind ordeals, as we already know the sniper will not be able to equip iron halos. That would leave some classes with literally nothing to unlock if it's just a Wargear unlock system. You guys can let me know what you think about that, if you want to see armor beyond just the Wargear added to this new challenge system as well. Now, one player actually asked Focus if we would see a new capes like the one we saw with Titus in the intro of the game, or a Victor Scarred cape for the Bulwark class, and the Focus community manager responded saying, "You'll see," and considering we already have leaks data mined in the game for a future Victor Scarred champion skin that is nowhere on the current roadmap, unless this is added to the confirmed year 3, I have a sneaking suspicion that we'll be getting this as part of the ordeal system in this patch or patch 14. I've mentioned before that I hate the color of capes we have in the game currently. The gray look of the sniper cloaks just kind of looks like shit to me, and even though we will also be able to move the Salamander champion chameleon line cloak onto other classes like tactical, which we actually got an image showcasing already, I was really hoping that we would be able to recolor our cloaks to some degree, but Focus did unfortunately come out and say that recoloring existing cloaks is impossible due to technical limitations. But if we get brand new cloaks in this update, then hopefully these can be a bit more aesthetically pleasing, similar to the black shoulder piece we got with patch 11 11 as a heroic store item. Players have also asked if you'll be able to simultaneously equip Iron Halos and Capes since they both occupy the Wargear slot, and Focus did respond saying that they wish they could confirm, but they are not sure yet, and they're also not sure if they'll be added to the PvP, but this should be possible as well. Personally, I would not expect these on Heretic Astartes, since Focus has already noted that clipping with Capes is a known and difficult issue to fix with a lot of the pauldrons, since I assume all the base game Capes were originally developed with just the Phobos Mark X sniper power armor in mind. And speaking of heroic store items, patch 13 will see the return of heroic armor pieces to the heroic store with 6 new items, including an Ultramarine helmet, Black Templar Heresy pattern helmet, and what I thought originally was a Wolf Priest helmet. This is actually a Space Wolves Head Taker helmet. And getting 3 helmets in a single heroic store update is amazing in my opinion. The previous heroic store items did have a lot of helmets, but we also got an overabundance of shoulder pieces, though we are getting 3 leg greaves this time as well, and I imagine that patch 14 will give us some power packs or further expand the chest piece options here too. Something I want to mention for those who are unaware is that limited time cosmetics like the Infiltrator helmet we just had a community event for, and the Death and Glory Greaves from a prior community event are all supposed to come to the Accolade store eventually, but Focus said it will not be immediate, and the only reason I can see for this is because they don't want to make new cosmetics. It is far easier to recycle these limited time ones for community events instead. That being said, some of the previous Twitch drops like the secret level Sergeant Matoris gear have already been made available to the heroic store, so they are adding them over time. It's just incredibly and probably intentionally slow. Though keep in mind, none of the limited time cosmetics that arrive in the store will cost you any accolades, and they are simply purchased with requisition, which is a nice quality of life feature from Saber. So let me know how you guys feel about the drip-fed community event cosmetics. They usually come in cycles. This isn't exactly new for a live service game, but Saber is pretty adamant that Space Marine 2 is not a live service. I also feel like this is a bit of a misunderstanding in a lot of cases, because when Saber says that the game is not a live service, it is not to say they don't plan on having post-launch monetization in the game. One of the original quotes from this was from the chief creative director of Saber, and he said they don't like the connotation that live service games have of nickel and diming their player base. They prefer to avoid the term, which I think is pretty fair considering a lot of live service games in the past 10 years have crashed and burned horribly, and the ones that are alive have mostly gotten greedier over time, though we did kind of see this with Saber as well when they tried to release a half-assed DLC voice pack that they made an entire community apology for. And that is now a free piece of DLC, which leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is, will we ever be getting a future voice pack DLC in the game? We already have a data mine for Raven Guard and White Scar's heads, and there was even a more recent data mine of a Salamander's head, potentially even with voice lines. So there was definitely another voice pack in the works, and Focus spoke about that a bit previously, but after the massive backlash it received over the prior one, I'm not actually convinced we will ever see this get released, and Saber probably lost a fair amount of money making the last one free to save face. They did kind of dig their heels in at first to the backlash, but thankfully they saw the writing on the wall sooner than most companies do and course corrected fairly quickly. But Focus's community managers have even come out and said they're not sure if they even want to release another one in the future given how the last one went. But personally, I think players will be totally willing to buy a new voice and head pack DLC as long as they improve the quality over the previous one. Maybe that's a hot take and you guys feel too burned by the last DLC, since the voice pack really was the only major controversy this game has had since launch. But let me know if you guys are even open to a new voice pack DLC if the quality is improved over the last one, and what would you consider to be a fair price? When it comes to chapter heads we already have in game, someone did ask Focus at one point if you would ever see the things like the Nocturne head added to the game, and they responded saying cosmetic additions like this are possible, but there are no plans for them at the moment. And speaking of things that are not planned, one player asked if we'd be getting a power sword on the tactical eventually, and the Focus community manager responded saying that no, the tactical is too overpowered already. Which, yeah, the tactical is absolutely a top tier class, but a power sword is not what is going to break this class or was currently going to make him OP. If anything, the power sword would actually be one of his weaker options, since he has access to both the Argent Edge combat knife and Power Gladius, which are the best defensive and offensive melee weapons on the tactical in the game at the moment. So I do hope we see the power sword on the tactical at some point in the future. There was a Joy Toy model release crossover of Space Marine 2 back around patch 11 last year that showed the tactical class using the Survivor power sword skin, and I initially thought that like maybe this was a hint towards a future power sword on the class. In the Saber community update in October of last year, they also responded to a question asked if you would ever see the power axe on this class, and they said they have something much cooler planned, but that was over half a year ago at this point, so I'm not sure if they're doing anything with that anymore. But let me know what weapon you guys like to see added to the tactical. There was also some talk about the potential of them adding new weapons to the Tech Marine as well one day, though it's not a priority for them, and I expect these to be ranged weapons like the Melta or Pyre Blaster if we ever did see them, because he already has a pretty great weapon selection for melee anyways, and the Tech Marine is also confirmed in patch 13 to be getting an expansion to customization options, and Deathwatch cosmetics eventually, since this was one of the biggest complaints about the class at launch. One of his best weapons is actually the Deathwatch heroic heavy bolt rifle, even though he has no Deathwatch cosmetics, but in Saber's defense, this heroic weapon was initially supposed to come out in patch 13, but they did move it up to patch 12, since there would have been none otherwise in that patch. The Tech Marine will also be receiving the much anticipated Iron Hands champion skin this patch, which might actually be one of the best looking so far from the images we have seen, and this will also include an Omniscient axe skin for the Iron Hands as well, and this is part of the first chapter pack we've had since year 1, meaning we'll be getting successor chapters on top of the champion skin customization. Chapter packs are also priced at the same amount as a champion pack anyway, so they're actually worth more for your money than a standard champion skin is. So I'm curious what you guys think of the Iron Hands champion. You know, I'm not a huge fan of the Iron Hands personally. You guys may be painfully aware of that when I couldn't easily identify the polish from this thing from a teaser image, but this looks to be one of the higher quality champion packs we've had, and the technological theme here is pretty cool, especially if you get those Deathwatch cosmetics for a Xenophase Blade Deathwatch Tech Marine build. But that is pretty much everything I want to talk about in this video. If we do wind up getting brand new capes and Iron Halos on top of the existing ones, I think that would make this Wargear update the best customization addition we've had to the game so far. And let me know what capes and Iron Halos you guys want to see in the game, but all these new cosmetics are shaping up to be the best we've ever had for this game, and I will be streaming the new patch and covering all the new unlocks and builds on this channel as usual. So if you want to catch me live, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description alongside a link to my community Discord. And as always guys, thank you for watching, take it easy, bye.